right, 5 minutes after 9 o'clock. We use science to get this sound out to you on your radio, which is another scientific miracle, I guess. Jim George is here to answer our questions about science as it applies to us today and how we get entertainment in our homes. Jim is the owner of American Cable Services, and he'll be answering our questions. And there's bunches of news about mergers and acquisitions, and even some local news about the city council saying, no, we're not going to do this. And the schools, I guess, have to pay more money now for their cable. So Jim's going to help us understand all that. It becomes political when you start talking like that, right, Jim? Good morning, Jim.
I've been told don't mention too much about what's going on. So I won't.
Really? It's in the newspaper. Why?
I know. Well, because they think I have the inside lead. I don't know anything anybody else doesn't know. You know what? Will Rogers says, all I know is what I read in the papers.
Yeah.
If the papers get it wrong, we get it wrong.
But the article in the paper, Susan Latham Carr, thank you, wrote the article, said that Florida Cable was awarded $1.09 million contract with the Marion County Public Schools in January to provide a network beginning July 1st. So the schools, I mean, what would be the likelihood that they could do their own? Well,
the city of Ocala actually feeds the schools now. But as you've been reading, there's been some disputes between the schools and 911 and emergency services and trash pickup. The schools consider themselves, and I'm guessing now, so this is not gospel, that they're part of the city. So why should they have to pay for things that the city does anyway? I mean, they pick up the trash, let's say, at the courthouse?
Right.
Or at the police department.
Right.
I mean, what difference does it make if they pick up the trash at the schools? In other words, we're all one big family here.
Yeah.
And so with that dispute, I think what happened, and I think this is not gospel, they said, well, let's just, if we're going to wean ourselves away from all these services, let's put it out for a bid. So they sent out an RFP, a request for proposal, and Florida Cable bid the amount you said, let's say $1 million, and I think CenturyLink bid $4 million. So, of course, they gave the contract to Florida Cable, and I think the due date that they have to perform is July, and that's they're an assumption on my part because I overheard it somewhere. So the bottom line is they then realized that Florida Cable had this lawsuit, that they being both the school board and the city, and they said, if we were to go ahead with this contract, wouldn't it mean that we might be enjoined by some kind of lawsuit?
Right.
I mean, you're paying extra.
Well, it makes sense to because of that reason.
And maybe we should distance ourselves. Or maybe there's a clause in the contract itself that says you have to be of good reputation and not be in bankruptcy. And then if that came up, then, of course, that would automatically negate the contract. But nevertheless, the county decided, I think they said 4-0. Everybody was in favor of not allowing them to have the service. But the school board has service. They get it from the city of Ocala now.
So really, this is kind of an internal discussion. It really doesn't affect the average person at home watching this TV or her TV.
No, it just means that each of the schools will have capability of, let's say, watching CNN school. They have a headline news for schools, and they can watch National Geographic. They can watch, TV channels as well as have data.
So does the city of Ocala provide the schools that are located outside of the city limits too, like in Bellevue and Dunellen, or do they have their own?
Well, that I can't answer. It said 28 schools, I think Larry was telling me earlier, and I don't know how many schools there are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it says the Ocala, I'm reading from the newspaper article, the Ocala City Council on Tuesday voted to refuse to lease dark fiber optics, I'm going to have to ask you what that is, to Florida Cable so the company could provide a 28-location network for the school system. The word dark simply means they're not using it?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
It's not lit up because, fiber has light going through it.
Okay. All right. Well, so turn on your radio. Listen to radio.
Yeah,
Go back,
exactly.
Go back to old school.
Bring in the films and the film canisters and things like that.
Can you imagine that?
Or read the newspaper out loud.
Can you imagine?
Kids.
When I was a younger guy, I was probably in my early 20s. My mom was the head of some youth organization in Rainbow Lakes Estates near Dunellen. And so this was in the 70s. And in order to show movies, the ladies who ran this organization had to rent 16 millimeter films from a company and sign this big waiver that said they weren't going to show it for anything other than this youth organization or whatever they did. And they used to pay like $300, and then they would get back $250 of it or something like that. It was $300 in case you lost the film or something like that.
Yeah, security deposit.
Can you imagine compared to now what you do? I mean, they just basically you go rent a video or stream it actually and show it to the kids. If you're having a summer program and you want to here watch this movie while it's raining outside or whatever.
Yeah, the technology is definitely going faster than we are. I mean, it changes so quickly, the technology.
Yeah, right.
But this merger, I guess one of the things you mentioned was Comcast and Time Warner merger.
Yes, yeah, that one
now
too.
That's probably
that's the huge one.
I don't know why they would allow that. It's like allowing AT&T to buy DirecTV.
Oh.
Why would you allow that? Because all it does is make a bigger problem. Let's take, for instance, I think I sent you an article that was on the FCC site. And
I found it accidentally. It was in my junk folder. I don't know why your mail went to my junk folder.
But they did a survey of 10,000 consumers, and they asked to rate a cable company by everything from customer service, the back office support, how is it when you call and those kind of things, technical expertise of the guy that comes out to your house or the installer, the quality of the channel, the speed of the internet, everything. And Time Warner was the last. And next to the last was Comcast.
Oh, really?
So if you take the two worst cable companies in America and you let them merge, what does that tell you? I mean, they can't fix their own problems independently. They're not going to be able to fix the problems jointly.
Oh, no.
Because there'll be at least a year just deciding which engineer is going to stay, which engineer is going to leave, and how many techs do they need for, for this area or for that area. So the service is going to go right down the tubes, and yet they're thinking about allowing it.
And you're in a world where there's always something new to learn, so you're constantly having to learn what's new and how to work it or understand it. I mean, the perfect example is just the internet among the average person. Depending on how old they are, is how quickly they grasp it.
Right. And each company, has their own idea of how to offer, let's say, digital. Comcast has their Infinity. That's their idea about how to deliver digital, and it's the TV everywhere option, where if you're a subscriber to CNN, then since you're paying for it, why not get it on your laptop? Why not get it on your cell phone? I mean, you're paying at one time for the service. And then Bright House has their own way of doing it, and there's still a TV everywhere, but they call it something different, and it's a different technology. Well, you merge the two companies. Somewhere along the line, one of those technologies is going to be better than the other or not as good as the other. And they're going to rule one out. I mean, it's going to be terrible. In other words, which one's going to be supported, which one won't be supported.
So what are your customers mostly requesting? I mean, is it mostly mundane things like certain channels? I'm guessing a la carte because that's the calls we get.
We get calls for the Oprah Winfrey channel.
Really?
We don't presently carry it. We can carry it, but we're getting close to launching our high def, and we're going to carry it in our high def package. And that's what they call about. All our customers are on analog. Now, the analog can be crystal clear. I mean, looking at it, it's best picture you ever saw, but it doesn't fill the screen up. It's not a high def channel, so it doesn't have the full range to open it up. And these people have bought large screens and expensive sound systems, and they want it in high def. So they want to be able to watch, let's say, a concert from Channel 2 that fills the whole screen up and has all the surround sound features and everything else. So when we launch the high def, that will be part of it.
So you're going to have one section of channels in analog, and then the other section, which will carry the same programming, in high definition.
Exactly. So the person that has a TV in the kitchen or in the lanai, they won't require a set-top box. They can still watch TV on their old analog TVs and have no problem. But a person that has a large screen out on their foyer somewhere or in their living room will have it in high def.
And Jimmy, have a phone call. Good morning. You're on the air with Jim George.
Good morning, Mr. George. Hey, this group, I just caught a little bit of it the other night on the news, but this organization that's supposed to, I guess they got a case that's going through the Supreme Court that's trying to provide satellite services and charge people for it, and they're, I guess, in a lot of the major networks and all this stuff are saying that there are all kind of copyright infringements and everything. Are you familiar with that case?
That would probably be the Aereo case.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, you're right on. Could you comment on that? I'll hang up and listen to what your thoughts are about that. I'd be interested to know.
Certainly.
Thank you.
There, thank you. Yeah, what is it?
Well, Ariel is owned by the Dillard family. The guy's a multi-billionaire, and he was actually one of the founders of Charter Cable TV. So his idea was, excuse me, go ahead and offer a service to people where he would sell you a small antenna, just like you could buy at Radio Shack or anywhere else.
Uh-huh.
But what it did is it will allow you to pick up the off-the-air channels. So you could pick up channels from Ocala, Gainesville, and Orlando. And in itself, there's nothing really wrong with that because he's just selling a product.
Right.
He went just a little bit further in the sense that he tied it into the internet and decided that if you're watching Channel 2 out of Orlando and you happen to like what you see, this little box he has will record it. And it will record in the cloud so you can come back later on and watch that channel that you missed. So the broadcaster said you need to pay a retransmission fee because you're receiving and rebroadcasting. And they claim, no, we're not receiving and rebroadcasting. We're just allowing the consumer to do what he can do anyway, which is put an antenna on his house and receive.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but by the fact that you're recording it somewhere other than the home and then sending it back to the customer upon request, then you're retransmitting it.
Yeah, that's
Like a time shift.
wow.
So
yeah.
they're in like 6 cities right now, like Dallas and New York, a lot of the majors. And so the bottom line is they're not paying rebroadcast fees. What we're going to do, just to let you know, is we want to pay Channel 2 and pay Channel 26.
Right,
We want to pay them because we want to be legal. We don't want any lawsuits after us.
Good morning. How you doing?
But that's the difference.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you, Bruce.
Yeah. The idea of putting it in the cloud and bringing it back down, is that really considered transmitting though?
It is. It's time shifting and it's rebroadcasting it.
That's kind of splitting hairs or something, isn't it?
Right, and that's why they want the Supreme Court to rule on it. Both sides want each one.
Because what's the difference really if I save it in my own computer or save it in the cloud? The cloud is just another computer somewhere. There really isn't anything in the cloud other than moisture.
That's right. That's true. Yeah. Well, it has to do with who has the content, and if you're saving it on Aereo's servers, then doesn't Aereo really have the content? And then they're giving it back to you?
I guess so,
you know,
yeah. I guess so,
As
yeah.
compared to you having a thumb drive or a hard drive. And
Right.
So there seems to be the hard drive. But it's split 50-50 right now. Some people believe Aereo will win. Some people believe that the broadcasters will win. I think the best of both worlds will just be where, okay, Aereo, your technology is great. Continue to use it. Pay broadcast fees.
How does the different time zones affect what the programming is going to come through your cable system?
We're right now only going to offer Eastern time. We're not going to offer Western time because we don't really have any customers, let's say, in California.
Right.
But if, in fact, we were to have customers in California, then we would offer Western time.
The phone number to call if you have a question for Jim about any of these things is 622-9622. Bruce Ackerman is in the studio
Yeah.
taking photographs.
Taking
That's a nice camera,
pictures,
too.
yeah.
Star Banner.
The size of that lens.
It's a nice camera. It's very uncomfortable. We're not used to cameras in here,
That's right.
except for the ones that are on phones or something.
Yeah.
That's a real camera.
The reason I do what I do is because I'm behind the camera. It's not like having
Oh, yeah. Well, that's where I need to
Oh, your
be.
lens is on. Your lens cap.
Robin has a...
See that? Look at that. I got to
Take
get
a picture, taking a picture.
Oh, look at that. Yeah, it's dueling cameras.
Oh,
dueling
boy.
Canons. Are they both Canons?
They are.
Mine's
Yeah.
a Canon,
So
yeah.
for those outside the studio, why don't you explain what's going on?
If you hear that clicking noise in the background, that's Bruce Ackerman from the Star Banner taking pictures.
Bruce is wonderful. He's a great photographer. He's an icon in our community. Been here a lot of years, too.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
He said thank you very much. He needs a microphone.
Now you're
Yeah.
telling how
He
old he
needs a
is.
You want to say something? his house. You gotta say something.
Bruce, testing 1, 2, 3.
I'm trying to get Bruce's in.
Good morning. This is Bruce.
You got a great radio voice.
Yes, he does. He does.
Very deep. Very deep.
Squeaky microphone. Move it back.
Yeah. And then Dan's behind the glass.
All right, so we're talking about cable and the internet and how we get TV and sound into our homes. And is all of this eventually going to be unnecessary because we're going to have a direct link to the satellite? Or is that day coming one day?
The satellite is up in the air right now, pardon the pun, as far as will it take over the landline, fiber? They can do a lot right now. They can actually even deliver internet to your house by satellite. But the link's just not that good yet.
Because if it rains,
in the future. Well, no,
up?
it's not necessarily the rain factor, as it is you need more and more and more satellites to cover the area. I mean, if you went to a state park, well, just drive to the forest. How's your cell phone work in the forest?
My cell phone doesn't even work well in my living room.
Yeah. Well, in the forest, it probably doesn't work at all.
And there's a tower. You can see a tower from where I live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can see it from my yard. And sometimes I lose signal. I'll call Robin, Robin, I'm home. I always report that I'm home. What?
Vice versa.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Well, for when you do have a signal from the satellites, do you and does your company like put a request in to NASA and say you're doing this, you need to have this on a satellite, or do they send up a satellite specifically for you?
No. That's a $500 million option to launch a satellite. But there are satellites up there right now. There was an article just last week, I don't know if I sent it to you, Larry, it said that in the next 2 years, we need 1,000 more satellites.
Oh, my.
1,000 in the next 2 years. That's how many companies want to launch their service.
Oh, gosh.
So
you're part of that.
Well, the internet's going to, I think, help a great deal to take that pressure off. Mm-hmm. There are so many channels. I mean, like if we wanted to carry the Icelandic channel, mm-hmm. we have two choices. We can put up a big satellite dish.
I feel like Kim Kardashian right now.
Pay a $4,000.
I don't look like it, but I feel like it.
Buy a $4,000 satellite receiver, and the service may only cost us 10 cents, but we have to sell it to the customer, let's say, for 50 cents, because we have that large dish, and we have the satellite receiver, and we have everything else. Or we could go online. Now, we have to get permission, because what you see online, like even if you go to Channel 2, is not Channel 2. It's their online version of Channel 2.
Oh.
If you want to stream Channel 2 live, that comes right off the transmitter.
Do you know what I do like a lot? I know this is similar but different. I listen to iHeartRadio.
Yes.
I listen to one of my favorite childhood radio stations out of New York, WPLJ. And when they go to commercial break, I can tell that they're doing something different for the streaming on iHeartRadio than if I was physically in the New York area listening. So
it is a different stream. I don't know why they do that. You would think they would just take the raw feed. I think it has to do with local copyright. They have the local shoe store and the local television repair guy, and they don't have a waiver to send his product, somewhere else.
Oh, wow. You'd think he'd want that, though, right?
Yeah. That's what we're going to offer. The reason why we want to offer, for instance, we have a signed contract with a company in Trinidad, Channel 4.
Uh-huh.
And of course, if you've ever been to Trinidad and Tobago,
No.
during Carnival,
I'm stuck here.
I've been there like 13 times. The Carnival is like Brazil Carnival.
Oh, really?
I mean, everything goes, and they spend all year making the costumes.
All I picture when I hear about that is thongs. That's all I hear.
Yeah.
That's all I picture in my
Barely.
life.
It's always steel drums. Steel drums are playing like crazy.
Steel drums and thongs, yeah.
So we made a deal with them where they're going to stream us their raw content. We also talked to a company in St. Lucia, a TV station in St. Lucia, which is right near St. Kitts.
Uh-huh.
And they're going to stream us their raw content. So what's going to happen is we're going to have channels from the Caribbean that nobody else in the world has right now, unless you're living in St. Kitts or you're living in St. Lucia or you're living in Trinidad. And so what that means is if you're a displaced Trinidadian and you grew up in Trinidad and you like to see what's happening locally with the schools, with the Savannah. Savannah's like the grounds where all the carnivals take place and and all the soccer games and the cricket games. I mean, when was the last time you saw a cricket game?
Wasn't that what really kicked off TV, though, was sports? In the beginning, isn't that what it was? It was a boxing or wrestling or something like that. Wasn't that in the very beginning of TV?
Well, you mean that was the draw for TV?
Yeah.
That and comedy. Comedy was the big thing, TV, you had the Milton Berle show and Ed Sullivan Hour and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that was the draw.
Well, of course, they had to figure out, what they had to do, and I don't know how they did it on radio. Obviously, comedy worked on radio.
Yeah.
And they tried to do on TV what they did on radio, but I don't know about the wrestling on radio. Did they have
No. It would be hard to commentate that.
Yeah.
Yet they do baseball and football.
Throw them down on the ground.
Yeah, I find that so hard to believe. It'd be like you commentating on Dan's flying the plane and you're in the seat next to him, and Dan just made a left bank and we're over the city of Ocala and we're coming into the downtown and we're over 75. I mean, how do you comment?
Did you ever hear, Jim, that I Love Lucy was the show that really brought us high quality reruns? Did you ever hear that before?
Not really.
Okay, and I don't mean to take your time away, but in the beginning there was this process that they used to get shows on the West Coast. They would make shows on the East Coast. People who watched them live.
Right.
And then they were recorded on this process. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a very, very poor recording process. But still, it's what we had. And so people on the West Coast would be watching the same shows that the people on the East Coast watched, and the audio would be okay, but the video was horrible. But that's what they were used to. And so Lucy and Ricky, not Ricky, what's his real name? Desi Arnaz, wanted to stay in California. They said, you can't stay in California. You have to do your show in New York because you have to do it live on the East Coast. Well, no, here's what we'll do. We'll actually film it. That way everybody has a good picture. And so there came the advent of high-quality reruns, which explains something to me. Because if I take my Kindle right now and I open it up to an old TV show, and I know I'm going to sound dorky when I tell you this, but like Lawrence Welk. I mean, the quality of the video is horrible.
Yeah.
And I just figured it was just bad. But what it was, I'm looking at what everybody saw at that time, unless you lived on the East Coast. If you lived on the East Coast, although Lawrence Welk was out of the West, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was just, yeah. Anyway. And there was a word for that, a name for that process of recording.
Oh, I'm not positive. Maybe if I heard the word, I'd say, oh, yeah, I know what that is. But
you don't have to worry about that because everything's going to be done, right? All you are, you're the person that makes sure that it gets from point A to the consumer.
Right. We have to transcode the signal in such a way as to not hinder it in any way. In other words, all the color is there, all the quality is there, but it's shrunk. So on the satellite, it might be 40 megabits per second. But in your home, it's only 1.5 megabits per second. Therefore, you can have a poor internet service to still receive a great quality picture.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing.
And you can receive it anywhere in the world.
And all we have to do is just subscribe to your system, and you'll be able to give us a choice between analog and high def.
And we're trying more and more to get the channels from around the world to allow us to stream their signal straight to us raw, so that if in fact they were streaming raw and something in Thailand happened, like it recently did, and where they shut off the broadcasters, maybe we would still be receiving a live stream.
Oh, wow. That is absolutely amazing because you've got to be on top of everything. And that's why you go to all those different conferences and meetings and things.
Yeah, I'm going to be out in June the 9th through the 14th. So I think the 13th is Friday the 13th is my time.
Okay.
And I'm going to be in a 5-day training session. You never outgrow your need to know.
Right. I quickly looked it up, but I couldn't find the word that they used. Anyway, Jim, what's your phone number?
Local number is 854-9795.
All right. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Always fun.
Same here.
I think we're going to be in the paper, too, it looks like.
Well, it looks like.
All right, we'll take a little break. We'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Tennessee brings back the electric chair.
Lethal injection drugs for death row inmates are hard to come by amid a European-led boycott over whether the method of execution is still feasible or humane. And that's prompted Tennessee to plug the electric chair back in the case that the state can't find drugs.
Fox Radio's Jeff Manasso.
This also after last month's botched lethal injection in Oklahoma, where an inmate suffered a collapsed vein and later died of a heart attack. Experts say to expect legal challenges to Tennessee's new law.
Drivers of older Ram pickups with manual transmissions might want to pay attention to a probe. U.S. safety regulators investigating some 110,000 of them because they've gotten 3 complaints the engines can be started without the clutch being depressed. There was one fatal accident. And Paul McCartney said to be recovering after being hospitalized for a virus that caused him to postpone shows in Japan. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Now through Memorial Day, Performance Bicycle, the nation's largest online cycling retailer, is offering the craziest, most extreme deals in their 32-year history. It's Markdown Madness at performancebike.com. All bikes are on